What does your day-to-day look like?
We have one of the best teams in the world.
How do you do this in a sustainable way?
Every single person in this world has a beautiful gift inside of them.
What's your dream? What's your dream? You guys have a dream?
This is going to be a weird answer, right? I don't think you guys will expect this.
Today on the show, I'm speaking with Callum Church, the creative director for Simon Squibb. Simon gets millions of views every single day simply by going on the street and asking people, what's your dream? Were you there from day one, the inception of that idea? Did you come up with that idea as the creative director? Like, where did that come from?
The way that came about was Simon had been posting on TikTok, himself doing like talking head videos at the time. And these would, typically average 5,000 views, something like that. Not a lot, but nothing at the same time. And he'd built up a small following from this. At the time, TikTok had just launched a new feature, TikTok Live, right? And Simon went on there, started talking to people, giving people business advice and all this sort of thing, like talking head stuff. And by the end of the live, he realized, oh crap, I've got some gifts. Some people had like donated money to me for doing this live, right? And Simon's philosophy is, he didn't want to charge anyone for help. And during this TikTok stream, he was helping people, right? So he decided that day that he would go out and give this money to someone, to be their first customer. So he went into a supermarket in the UK called Tesco's, walked up to this lady and asked at the time he didn't actually ask what's your dream. He asked, would you ever start a business of your own? In Simon's words, this lady's eyes lit up, like this smile beamed from ear to ear. And she just lit up talking about this idea, this business that she had, that she wanted to do, but ultimately something was stopping her. So Simon, spoke to her a moment, and basically she's lacking belief in herself, So Simon almost symbolically offers to be her first client, gives her this money, $100, couple $100, something like that. It just completely opens up this lady's world. She's like, thank you so much. And Simon naturally felt great after this interaction he'd had in this supermarket. But he only had one regret from it, which was that he didn't record it, so that he could share it with other people, right? He did the same thing. He went straight to the bank, picked up some cash, and went into a restaurant in the UK, went straight up to the front desk and said, would you ever start a business of your own? And it was a dude this time. And, he spoke about this idea. And again, Simon sort of broke down the limiting beliefs and whatnot. And so we posted it online. And this time it didn't get 5,000 views. I think it was 60,000 views at the time, which was a lot of views for us when we were like figuring it out back then. Yeah, I was just like, right, we have to build on this, absolutely. So I picked up the camera. We went out in the street, super rough, asking people, would you ever start a business of your own? And we started to have some progress, started to get some better clips, better views, interesting stories from people, and started having some success online. And then I think we had a couple of clips that was like maybe a couple million, but it was very inconsistent. It was up and down. It was wild. But when we really started to hit our stride with that series and it became, recognized worldwide, and Simon really became well known, was when we changed the hook. We changed that hook from "Would you ever start a business?" to "What's your dream?" And the reason for this was because not everyone necessarily wants to start a business. You're somewhat alienating that audience there if they're not business minded. But the reality is everyone has a dream. And if you think about what a dream really is, well, to be honest, it's only finding out how you can build a revenue model around doing the thing that you love, which is a business. One of our big ones back in the day was about 25 million views on TikTok, something similar on Instagram as well. A guy called Davide in the streets of London wanted to start a restaurant called the Black Pearl. Yeah, ever since then, we've just been building on it, and
Right.
I guess the rest is history.
So does that mean that you just go out on you in your schedule, it's like, oh, well, it's Wednesday, let's go out and find some people and ask them what their dream is for the next couple hours? Like, how do you do this from an operational standpoint?
Yeah, well, I guess back in the day, we did kind of schedule it out like that, where we had a smaller team and less going on, less busy lives, I guess. Whereas now, we have a very talented team. Our, lead videographer, lead editor, guy called Dudley, pretty much follows Simon nearly everywhere. Simon will go on family holidays and Dudley will fly out too, and they'll go record some dreams. And whatever Simon's doing, whether there's meetings, whether there's events that he's going to, or whether they've actually dedicated an afternoon or a morning to recording content, Dudley's there, and you best believe he's filming. One of the many ingredients that I think make it work is, well, absolutely a team, but more than that, a team that's fully committed a team that lives and breathes not just what we're trying to build, not just the content, but the mission, what it stands for, what it means. We're trying to give everyone the freedom to be able to pursue a life that they love, and I think that matters to the team that we have.
One of the things that I see from Simon on Instagram, there's a lot of pictures of him with people like yourself and like 8 other crew members. And it
Mm.
seems like y'all just kind of fly around the world together. And like you can see the team attachment that you were just describing. Like everyone's really bought into the messaging. So much so that wherever Simon goes, it seems like they all seem to go. How does Simon or you in the leadership position that you're in, how do you elevate other people on your team? Because if they have missions as well, or if they have ambitions, like how do you foster growth in that in your company?
Well, it's really about finding out what these people want to achieve and seeing if there's a route that we can achieve that together. Like I said, fundamentally, the main thing that we look for when we're hiring or whatever, or looking at candidates for roles is passion and, commitment. And do they care? Do they actually care about the mission? And there's a few different ways that we can figure that out. Skills is, we have one of the best teams in the world. Skills can all be learned, skills can be trained, but you can't teach passion. You can't teach purpose. Like when we kicked this all off a few years ago, I met Simon, and speaking to you candidly, I was a 21-year-old kid editing videos in my bedroom. I was pretty junior, right? And, I did some freelance work with Simon for some time, editing podcasts, that sort of thing. And after a few months, he turned around to me and he said, Callum, we're really aligned on mission, and I'm launching this company. It's going to be creator-led, influencer-led, and I need to build up my content, build up my personal brand. I need a content guy to join me for this ride. Are you in? Do you want to do this with me? And we shook hands. We teamed up. I often reflect on that moment because, like I said, I was a 21-year-old kid, pretty young, nothing special, skills-wise or whatever. About a year ago, I was on a hike with Simon, on a hike in Hong Kong with him, and we were talking about the business, talking about goals for the next year and stuff, and also just reflecting on, I guess how far we'd come and stuff. And I asked him, Simon, a few years ago when we teamed up on this, and you chose a random 21-year-old kid to join you for this huge, lofty mission. Bear in mind, Simon had just, come off the back of a huge exit selling his company to PwC. He had millions and millions in the bank, more money than he'll ever need. He could have hired the best talent in the world. Why me?
Right.
Why me and Jack? Why did you want us to join you for this mission, right? And he turned around to me and said, Callum, because you had the one thing that money can't buy. It's purpose. You can't buy it. You can have the best talent in the world, but if they don't care about their mission, they're not going to be staying in the office till midnight, and want to be there and enjoy being there and living that. Of course they're not.
What has been the method that's led to the most success, finding the right people?
We have a team of around 40 now. And I've had the privilege of, having some awesome characters join us for this ride. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I just had a new member of the team join me. He's a guy called Clemens. Awesome guy. The story of how he joined the team is really the story that best represents how, some of our best people come. Clemens was a few years ago stuck in a corporate job. He was doing the typical stuff you're supposed to do. He's based in Germany, stuck working in a corporate job in Germany, and just hating his day to day. I think, when you go through the education system or upbringing or whatever, most people get taught that car or that house is going to make them happy, and they get into debt and they get trapped, right? And Clemens, in his own words, said, he very nearly got trapped. He was working this corporate job, earning good money, I guess, month by month, not enjoying his lifestyle at all, and very nearly committed to that by getting into debt, by buying the sexy car, by buying the big house. Fortunately, in Clemens' words, he found Simon's content and started watching the content and, thinking about, how he can work on his dream and escape, right? Fortunately, he did. And, he fell in love with the content. And a year ago, I started getting emails from this guy in my email inbox. Hi, I'm Clemens. I'd love to join your team. And, I think I checked out the first email or something. I was like, yeah, not sure. And then the next day I get an email and it's like, oh, it's this Clemens guy again. Okay, all right, okay. And then the next day I get an email. And the next day I get an email. Anyway, weeks and weeks go by, and I'm getting an email from this dude every day. At this point, I'm kind of thinking he's nuts or crazy or something. I'm like, oh God, you know. Anyway, long story short, 167 days later, 167 emails later,
No way.
I open his email and he says, I'm flying to the UK to come to your next community event. I'd still love to work with you guys. Let me know. So I hit the reply button. I was like, you know what, Clemens, you've earned your shot. Let's chat, and I meet up with him at this event just to figure him out, and I kind of went into this conversation thinking like, okay, let's figure out if this guy's actually crazy.
Yeah. Because it could go either way, right? Like,
Yeah,
it could have
honestly,
went
yeah.
very poorly.
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, he was crazy, but he was crazy for the mission, and we've been working with Clemens for like about a month now. He's really awesome, and bringing him in, I was very honest with him. Bringing him in, I was like, dude, I don't know what your role is in this team. I just know that you have a role here. So we got him in loosely, and he's slowly molded into like an operations guy. And I just know he's going to be really great because he lives and breathes it. Candidly, and honestly, all of our best talent in the team is homegrown. To be honest, I mean, we're very fortunate. We're at a position now where we are hiring in top talent coming in. But over the years, by and large, our talent has been pretty much homegrown and been very passionate characters like Clemens.
What kind of roles are there within your team?
Honestly, the truth is it varies across different teams. Typically I like to pair like a creative mind, outside the box thinker, super creative, an artist. I like to pair an artist with like that more coordination, operations, organized mind. I feel like those are a real power pack, especially when it comes to creative teams, at least. Someone to run the day to day and someone to make sure that we create beautiful stuff.
You're talking about teams as kind of like the big picture, though. Like, what do you mean by, is it like the content team? There's the help bank team. There's the whatever else that you're working on team. Is that kind of like the big picture stuff? And then you fill them with people wearing multiple hats within each team?
There's the Simon Squibb content team, and there'll be, I guess, like smaller teams within that, like a partnerships team, there'll be, content creative, like, or maybe like short form team, YouTube team or long form team.
What's the largest team within your entire organization?
I mean, we have an international team, which is pretty big and growing. And, this is where we translate all of Simon's content into all the different languages and, more importantly, cultures of the world. Truthfully, it kind of depends how you group it, right? Because there's crossover. There's crossover.
So it kind of sounds like you guys have little pods of people that just kind of operate together but independently. Is that kind of how it works? Just like this team works on short form for Simon on this and they just go for it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, and also like people can wear multiple hats. So like, Katie, Simon's EA, like, she's there day to day, out in the street recording with the team and capturing people's details, but she's also, like the dreamers' details and whatnot, but she's also managing Simon's day to day, managing his calendar and whatnot. But then also, she helps on some of the YouTube production stuff as well, because she's got a great production brain and she wants to produce great, like documentaries and content and whatnot, right? So it bleeds all into each other a little bit. So which is why I say it's quite hard to explain exactly without just straight up showing you an org chart, I suppose.
And are you the one kind of overseeing everything?
I lead the creative across the company. So as creative director, I'm responsible for making sure that, we have great content going out across the ecosystem. A large part of my focus kind of goes into launching new formats or launching new teams, building new teams. So one thing that I'm working on right now is Help Bank platform content itself and trying to build a media team, media business for the platform itself as well.
What is Help Bank? Tell everyone about Help Bank.
Yeah, so Help Bank is our platform that we launched about 2.5 years ago now. And Help Bank is really a place for people to go to get help with their dream, whatever that is. So, when we first launched the platform, we were thinking of this as the community that watch and enjoy Simon's content, and whether that's a community of dreamers or maybe that's a community of people that have already achieved something in their own lives. Bringing this community together to help each other, because people like Simon, he's just one guy. But if we could build a movement, a central hub for people to come together to help each other with their dreams, man, would it be a lot easier to pursue that, right? But we're also building out tools now on that platform as well that people can use that can streamline how they build their business and simplify how they build their business. we're using AI and things like this now to service that and to do that.
Is there one business in particular that comes to mind when you think about the impact that Helpbank has had on them?
It's really hard because they're all great, honestly. And the thing is, like, the most beautiful thing is that everyone in the world, every single person in this world has a beautiful gift inside of them. If only they just unlock that and find a way to unlock that and live that day to day. Some people it's locked away behind, a limiting belief. Some people it's locked away behind, quite frankly, just getting the break that they need in life to be able to do it. Some people it's locked behind, they just need to gather a little bit more knowledge about how best to do it and advice and guidance. One of the standout ones is two twins, right? They're based in London and they rang our doorbell. We have a doorbell of dreams. It's basically a place everyone can go to pitch their dream to our community. And we have this doorbell up in London. We have this doorbell up in New York. The Macca twins were one of the first people to ring this doorbell, right, when we first launched it. They pitched their dream of starting a cleaning company, to this doorbell. And we got them involved in some content and whatnot, told them they should start creating their own content. Anyway, long story short, they started creating their own clips online, talking about how they clean places no one else asked them to clean. And they basically go to like some random public place, maybe an alleyway or maybe some landmark in London, and all these unique places, the tube, the London Underground, like trains and stuff, and they
Yeah.
clean these places. Like no one wants to clean these places. No one asked them to clean these places, and yet they do it. And they have this great content. They've built up their own community as well, and they're doing really well now. When we first met them, they had I think it was a family of 5 living in a one bed studio apartment. It's just crazy stuff. And since then, they've been able to, buy their own place out in the suburbs and, have their family move in. And it's just a really touching, beautiful story.
That's amazing. That's a cool story. I love it.
What does your day-to-day look like? Or is it like maybe a weekly cadence or a monthly cadence?
A lot of it is, I guess, creative leadership, offering a creative brain to different projects to make sure that we are executing as best we possibly can. For example, right now, like I said, a lot of my focus is on Helpbank content itself and leading that team, in all areas, leading it somewhat operationally and setting the tone for how we run it operationally and working with Clemens, who's my operations guy on that. But also, leading the creative as well and working with our creative team to make sure that, that's as good as it can possibly be. So it's quite broad there, but then I guess the flip side of that is that I'm still very involved in Simon's YouTube channel, or getting more and more involved in the day-to-day again, to make sure that that's as good as it can possibly be. And I'll be on, brainstorming calls, packaging ideation, that sort of thing, maybe reviewing footage as a team, discussing how best we execute on this, and also planning out fresh concepts and new ideas and planning for new content as well. So when you ask me what I do in a day, I feel like my days get crazier and crazier and crazier, that it's almost quite hard to answer. Yeah, but I guess it's creative leadership and pushing forwards how best we think about approaching our content to make sure that we execute on it effectively.
What does good Simon Squibb content look like? You mentioned like your hook previously. What is the rest of it?
In some ways it's subjective, right? Like, what is artwork? Like what is art? Like, people see art in many different ways. So in some ways it's subjective, but to me, I think for the most part, it's fundamentally storytelling, right? It's like, how clear is the story? Are we pulling on the right tools to be able to tell that story effectively? Like, is the music choice correct? Are we lingering on a certain shot long enough to illustrate a certain like story? Are we even clear on what the story is itself? And are we thinking about that in the forefront of our minds? I was just speaking with a team yesterday, not not even on content specifically, but it was on something that was on our platform that was like, this feels off brand to me. We need to change it. So I guess it's like, truthfully, it's reflecting. That's really what the role is. Like, my job is to empower our team to be the best creatives they can possibly be. And creativity is a very personal thing. Two people might look at the same thing and see it differently. Like, two people might take a piece of footage and come up with two very different results. Now, what is good? You know,
Right.
like you could say like, okay, it's how many views it's going to get, and for the most part, that's kind of how we judge it. But like, it's really to help people unlock their creativity and help people to really live that. Have you ever heard of like the Michelangelo effect? Right, this is something like Chris Williamson's spoken about recently. It's where you see the best in something, right? Where you can Michelangelo can see a piece of rock, but within that he can see David, his very famous statue, right? As a creative director, you help people see David in the stone.
It's interesting to hear you speak compared to some other people that we've spoken with, because a lot of people in a similar role to yours, I think the work that they do is in service of the audience. And I think it sounds like you're really working for the people who you are kind of supervising. It's kind of like you want to make sure that everybody on your team is excelling to the best of their ability. And as a result of that, that's how you make great work. Do you view yourself as kind of like the servant of like you're serving your own team more than you're serving the audience, Simon's audience?
Yes, because it's downstream from it. Like if I best serve the team, then the audience is going to be served. My philosophy on all of this, right, is my meaning of life, if you like. And I'm going to get deep for a moment, but I promise this is related. It's creativity. I get an awful lot of fulfillment and enjoyment from creating things, and I get that because I truly believe that it is the purpose of not just us but the universe, and I want to best help my team to bring those beautiful gifts to the world. I want to help empower everyone to bring that out because I think that's why we're here. And I think truthfully, everyone is a creative. Everyone is an artist. Doesn't matter who you are. Some people can create beautiful dialogue and converse with someone and convince them to buy. You're a creative, you're an artist. Someone can, be an artist in the more traditional sense of, maybe they're a painter, maybe they're a content producer, maybe maybe they write poetry. Maybe someone's a little bit more technically gifted. Maybe they're great at building platforms and coding. Well, that's creativity, is it not? Because you're making something. Maybe someone's a politician. Well, you're great at creating and convincing people with the way you speak and how you carry yourself and leadership. That's a form of creativity. So without getting too deep, I've actually forgotten what the original question was now.
You certainly are someone that's unique compared to a lot of the people that we've spoken to. We work in a world that I think is widely regarded as content creation, creating content, and you are describing it as art, which is really interesting. And I think particularly in YouTube education, one observation that I'm making through this interview is a lot of people in YouTube education make stuff to help you learn something or to get better. And with Simon, you're kind of like inspiring people. You're giving people a feeling, which is an interesting type of education. It's very different from Alex Hermosi or Daniel Priestley, like where they're giving tactical advice and that kind of stuff. What I'm seeing from Simon and hearing from you is like you're giving people energy to go and find their purpose if they haven't figured it out. So that's pretty interesting. That's cool. I didn't think about that until I started talking with you.
Yeah. Well, it's why storytelling is the most powerful gift and skill set anyone can have and build and learn.
I'm curious how you think about the functional side of content creation, because views are important. If there weren't views, it would be hard to continue doing what you're doing and hiring and expanding the team and those kinds of things. But views can be perceived as kind of like a grubby goal to work towards. And I think that's why a lot of people are like, oh, this is content creation. We're trying to optimize for views. How do you think about views from your holistic perspective?
So there's two different ways to think about this, right? A lot of the time, people don't like to approach content from the perspective of an artist because they're not playing the game of content. They're not clickbaiting, or they're not trying to get the views and get the audience in and get the subscribers or whatever. So there's two different. It's all a balance, I suppose. Like there's a balance to be had between playing the game and creating beautiful artwork. Like you can go, let's call it like the views method, or you can go let's call it the art method, which is maybe a little bit more like just creating something as if no one's ever going to see it, and it's just something that you're going to be proud of. Whereas the views method is, creating something to play the game and capture attention, optimize retention, those kinds of things. And there's been plenty of movies that I've watched that have really touched me and moved me and made me feel a certain way. Perhaps it was boring at times. Perhaps if I wasn't watching it in a cinema, maybe I'd leave or turn it off. Or maybe if I'd scrolled TikTok a little bit and drilled some dopamine through my brain, maybe I'd get bored and switch off, right? So there's a balance to be had between reaching people and making people feel something. I think maybe the reason why, people take my perspective on content as a little bit more holistic compared to others within, let's call it like the business space, is because people in the business space are creating for a result. They're creating for signups, they're creating for revenue, they're creating for X, Y, and Z. Whereas our team, yes, revenue plays a factor, but truthfully, it's impact first. That's why we index a little bit more on artwork versus playing the game. We're still playing the game, we want views, we want to reach people, but equally, if we're just focusing on retention, so much so that no one feels anything as a result of watching our content, we failed. So the best way to explain this is a video we created that really blew up Simon's brand on YouTube, which is a YouTube video titled 30 Years of Business Knowledge in 2 hours and 26 minutes. Now, this video really came about as a result of lots of people DMing Simon asking for advice, asking to be his mentor, asking for answers to things. Simon, naturally, he's one guy. He can't answer all of these like thousands, tens of thousands of messages that he gets, right? So he wanted to create a video that would just end all of the DMs. Here you go. Here's one link. Everything is there, right? So we created this video in this monster session of recording where Simon just splurged everything he knew about business all in one go. And at the time, that kind of ended, long story short, that video ended up setting a bit of a trend on YouTube. But, at the time, that was a really weird video to make. 2 hours and 26 minutes, it's too long. You're supposed to create videos that are 15-minute long, keep retention, right? Why are you giving it all away in one video? We could make like 50 videos out of this, you donut. Why are you doing, And it's funny how when you go so against the grain like that, and you create something for the sake of creating it, as opposed to how is this going to perform in the algorithm? It's ironic how that becomes the biggest business video ever on YouTube.
It set the trend when it came out, and everybody copied it afterward. We even talked about it at our team. We never ended up doing it, but it was definitely on the table for a long time.
Yeah, but I guess just to finish my point, it's just funny how when you create and you index and you have the bravery, more importantly, to index a little bit more on artwork versus the game, or what I want to create versus the game, that you have the best result. And it takes a lot of bravery. Even I feel this now as well, especially when people have teams and they have costs that they have to uphold. And, we need to deliver, we need to get views. Otherwise, there's a problem here. It takes a lot of bravery, but that's where the magic happens.
I think Simon is in an interesting position because of selling the company, and he has all of this runway to afford to go all in on artistically merited content and pushing the dreams of him and his team and you and everybody. For someone who is not wealthy, how do you do this in a sustainable way? How do you push your art to make it sustainable when you don't have a bunch of money to do that?
Yeah, I guess, again, it's a balance. An artist still needs a business person to sell their art if they want to make it a sustainable thing, right? Again, it's about, you can't index 100% on artistry, make a bunch of paintings, but not sell them,
Right.
because you're going to be homeless, man. So it's like, I guess, I'm very lucky. I am a creative through and through. I'm very lucky that I have great partners with me in on this. I guess that commercial side that we're talking about here, I'm very lucky that I've had that covered from people like Simon and Jack that are partners with me in this business. So you do need that commercial mind. And again, it's not a dirty thing. It's still like I said earlier, I called these guys artists as well, right? Like creatives as well. I guess my advice, look, if I was to give advice to that artist, that just wants to create their art, I would say team up with a business person, because you'll be surprised how these people are looking for, people that, in their words, have talent they can lean on to produce something that they can sell. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that answered your correct question.
No, it did. It did. It was interesting to hear the perspective. Okay. You see the world in a different light than I think most people do. And I think that translates really interestingly into the content that Simon puts out. We always end our show with asking each guest who a creator that they really respect that's on their radar is. And I'm curious, who is someone that you're really excited about right now?
This is going to be a weird answer, right? I don't think you guys will expect this. They're not a new creator, but my mind instantly, as you are asking that question, instantly goes to PewDiePie.
Oh, interesting.
The reason why, I just have so much respect for the dude. Like, he's kind of the epitome of what we're trying to do here. Like, as a teenager, starts creating videos in his bedroom, playing horror games, video games, somehow starts to make a living from it, you know, sharing it with his audience, sharing his unique passions and hobbies with the internet, builds up a following, becomes the biggest YouTuber on the planet, starts a family, and moves to Japan and makes for the artwork rather than the game. I just think that's something about that's really beautiful. And I guess as someone that I kind of grew up watching as well, seeing that journey, I just have a lot of respect for it. And he's not the perfect guy. No one is. But that's a life well lived, in my opinion.
I'm so glad you picked him. That it's funny to say he's an underrated pick, but I actually think he is. Like, I completely agree with you. I grew up watching him, and at the time, the content he was making was the content that I really liked. And now he's pivoted into this like family lifestyle, just like enjoying every single day. And I'm so for it. I love it. You know, watching that kind of vlog content is very simple.
Isn't it ironic how and sure, okay, fine, maybe you could argue that his viewership has dropped off since he's taken this like latest step, you know, into family life and focusing more on the artwork than like the game or making money or whatever, right? Isn't it funny how that audience still kind of hangs around as well and still
Yeah.
enjoys that content? Like, if someone started off making his style of content like he's doing now, it would be very, very hard for him to grow quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Over a long time horizon, sure, right? You know, but that audience still hang around. I just think that's so awesome. Like, he's just creating for the art, and he's just he's just done it right, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's kind of found his enough and he's kind of owned it. And I think that is something that's really respectable. I think everybody's kind of chasing more and he's kind of been like, nah, I've got enough. And he's just enjoying everything else. Callum, thank you for the interview. I appreciate this, man. It was really cool chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise. I enjoyed this one. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you both.
All right, that's the episode. Thank you very much for watching and listening. If you're new here, please consider subscribing or leaving us a review. It really matters in these early days for the show. Also, if you're the producer or creative director like Callum for a channel that has over 1 million followers or subscribers on any given platform, please reach out to us. You can find us on @Gimbal Podcast on all platforms. We would love to interview you. I'm sure you have a lot of expertise to share, and we'll get you on the show. If you want to see another one or listen to another episode, please check our back catalog, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can click somewhere on this screen a recommended video for you. Thank you so much, and see you next time.